Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. Let's take a moment right now to unmute so we can hear one another's voices as we greet each other and say good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning, good morning. So many voices. You can see the order of service by following the link in the chat. There's lots of information there about upcoming events as well as what's going on in today's service. And at least one of those events is this evening. So do have a look and don't miss out on anything that might interest you here at UUCPA. Now we welcome Kelly Younger, who will tell us about our Justice Partner for June.
Hello, thank you for choosing the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity as your June Justice Partner. I'm Kelly Younger, and I'm our Nueva Esperanza Accompaniment Team's Program Coordinator. With this program, we bring together teams of volunteers from congregations to walk alongside recently arrived immigrants while they resettle their lives. The teams support the immigrants' self-sufficiency by introducing them to local resources and working toward families' goals together. We've partnered with UU Palo Alto to accompany Gregorio and his daughter over the last year and a half. The team asked congregation members if they had any work opportunities for him because he, like so many immigrants, have had really unreliable work and abuse in pay. They also recorded him sharing and telling parts of his story to the congregation about how climate disruption forced him to migrate to survive. And most recently, the team celebrated his daughter's birthday together by throwing them a party. A really beautiful moment was seeing Accompaniment come full circle when Gregorio distributed food donations to fellow RV residents where he lives. Seeing that just like the team accompanied him, he then had community that he could turn around and accompany also. So, donations you offer to the interfaith movement will support other families like Gregorio. We've actually had 30 families referred to us since the beginning of the year, but we're limited to accompanying only 8 families at once. Your donation would allow us to accompany more families, offer more than $500 in emergency funds to each family, and continue to teach about root causes of migration. If you'd like to volunteer, you can form your own accompaniment team. We'd love that. Offer hosted housing or be a sponsor so immigrants can be let out of detention centers. And you can always join our policy advocacy work or support individual deportation defense campaigns. So thank you again for all the great accompaniment that the congregation and team have been involved in. It's made a huge difference in Gregorio and his daughter's lives. And thank you for choosing Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity as your June Justice Partner.
Our offering today will go entirely to the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. We are so glad to be your partner, Kelly. And now, let us begin our service. If you have a chalice there at home, please light it along with me as we create our sacred space with these words from Sri Ramakrishna. Dive deep, O mind. Dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Light up, O mind. Light up true wisdom's shining lamp, and let it burn with steady flame unceasingly within your heart. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Kongxi, whose Latinized name is Confucius. I've changed the pronouns to reflect that he was speaking potentially of all people. When the superior person eats, she does not try to stuff herself. At rest, she does not seek perfect comfort. She is diligent in her work and careful in speech. He avails himself of people of the Tao and thereby corrects himself. This is the kind of person of whom you can say, they love learning. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, let us become centered and fully present in this place together. Now please join in as Bruce leads us in singing, I Wish I Knew How.
Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting It's time for another stuffed animal sleepover. I'm Barago Lion. I'll be one of the chaperones for this year's sleepover, and Belinda Sheep here will be another chaperone. Belinda, you'll have to talk English. Not all the humans watching know how to speak sheepish.
Oh, okay. I'm the other chaperone. The stuffed animal sleepover is from Friday, June 11th through Sunday, June 13th. And I'll be working remotely, doing technical support, like helping to post photos on UUCPA's Facebook page.
Dr. Sharpie, why do you have to work remotely?
Big meeting at CERN about next steps with the Large Hadron Collider.
Oh, well, I'll be there helping with things like pulling wagons and heavy lifting.
As UUCPA opens up after the pandemic, this is one of the last chances for us stuffies to take over the whole campus at UUCPA. We're going to have lots of fun.
We'll spend Friday night in quarantine, since there still isn't a vaccine for us stuffies.
On Saturday, we'll eat breakfast together. Then we have a whole day of fun activities planned.
Then your human can pick us up on Sunday afternoon. Remember, only stuffies whose humans are 18 or under can come on the sleepover.
Please ask your human to register you in advance using the online form. Tell your human the details are in the June CYRE newsletter, or email Dr. Sharpie.
Stuffies, we hope to see you on Friday.
See you soon.
See you!
That looks like so much fun. I know the Stuffies would not appreciate it if I crashed their party, but I would so love to be here when the Stuffies are taking over. We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, please send your joys and sorrows to joyconcern@uucpa.org or post them in the chat box provided by Zoom, and they will be shared aloud. To remember those taken from us by COVID-19, we light this candle. And we share one story from the well over 1 million around the world. Janetta Wilson, her family and friends celebrated the imminent birth of her third child with a baby shower several weeks ago. Shortly after that, she developed symptoms of COVID. When she went into a coma, her son, Charles, was delivered by cesarean, but he died at 1 week. She remained hospitalized and died on June 1st. Janetta lived in Washington, D.C., worked as a nursing assistant, and leaves her husband and 2 children. She would have been 42 later this month. Her family asks for our prayers. Blessed be. Now let's join in as Bruce leads us in singing, "Open My Heart."
heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give.
Our reading today is by Claire Foster. As a potter presses clay on a spinning wheel, a shape begins to emerge. The rotation of the pottery wheel and the gentle yet firm hands of the potter work together to mold a mass of clay into a beautiful form. If the potter exerts too much pressure, the clay will break or tear. If the potter exerts too little pressure, the clay will not transform into a piece of pottery. After the potter is done making the pot, the clay must rest before being fired. Like clay pots, we can become our best when we experience enough stress, but not too much. We also need time to rest, especially before and after times of fire in our lives.
Suffer from memory.
Today's sermon is about stretching. So let's take a moment right now to stretch physically. Notice anything that's gotten a bit stiff and give it some gentle loosening up, and then a nice stretch. Maybe if you've been sitting, that means standing for you. With physical exercise, people used to say, no pain, no gain. We might still hear that, but for the most part, fortunately, we're developing a culture of wanting to bend but not break. There's a bit of discomfort, sometimes a lot of discomfort, as we push our bodies to move faster, lift more weight, carry on longer than they do in a relaxed state. Lactic acid is building up in our tissues. Muscles are doing things they're not accustomed to. We get that burn that we don't get when we're just sitting in a comfy chair. But we know that when that strain crosses into serious pain, we may be doing ourselves actual damage. Pain in the chest, bad sign. Pain in the joints means give them a break. So, not no pain, no gain. Just some strain, some stretch. On the other hand, we know that if we're not feeling any strain, if our breathing isn't speeding up and our hearts aren't beating fast, the exercise isn't taxing enough to do us much good. It's not bad to take a leisurely stroll, not at all, but it's not attaining the point of exercise. In between is the sweet spot, the stretch zone. So we can think of ourselves as having three zones of activity: the comfort zone, the panic zone, and the stretch zone. In the comfort zone, we're relaxed, we're resting after a day of hard work or after turning in a big assignment that's had us feeling under pressure. We sink into comfort. The comfort zone is where we spend our time off. If you never feel like you're in the comfort zone, that's a real problem. Rest is important for us, as for the clay. Maybe you know the feeling of having spent a long stretch of free time doing nothing much until you're feeling kind of blobby. That I didn't do anything all day feeling. If that distresses you, well, sometimes that's internalized capitalism, making us feel like we're not entitled to rest. And sometimes it's something positive. Like our muscles telling us that they need some exercise. The muscles of the mind and spirit feel like that, just like the muscles of the body do. Maybe you relish a day of no obligations, but you feel best if it includes some kind of stretch, like practicing an instrument or working in the yard or going for a long walk. There's such a thing as too much time in the comfort zone. Of course, in the panic zone, we are pushed beyond our limits. We don't usually go there unless we're forced to. But we might force ourselves, perhaps chanting that destructive mantra, no pain, no gain. In education, this is sometimes called the frustration zone. A wise teacher knows that a student who spends too much time being frustrated will not learn. They'll feel stupid and incompetent and incapable. They'll lose faith in themselves. The subject will start to seem like an insurmountable cliff. They'll give up. Where we want to be is at the leading edge of our knowledge and understanding, not past it. Lev Vygotsky, the psychologist who influenced a great deal of educational thinking, called the ideal learning zone the zone of proximal development. That's where we are working on, in his words, functions that have not yet matured but are in the process of maturing. functions that will mature tomorrow but are currently in an embryonic state. When we're in that zone of proximal development, that stretch zone, we benefit greatly from the mentoring and coaching of someone whose functions are just a bit more mature. A young child struggling to grasp multiplication will be helped by a child a year or two older, say, who has recently absorbed the concept, somebody who's proximal. We also benefit from teachers, if they are savvy enough and sensitive enough to where we are, to accompany us from that point, gently pushing and encouraging. This is what a trainer does physically, helps us to find our stretch zone. Spiritually, intellectually, and emotionally, as well as physically, we have these three zones, and I was introduced to them in the context of social change recently when I took an 8-week workshop called the Game Changer Intensive from the Pachamama Institute, designed to up our game as social change agents in a world that needs us. And we were urged to be in the stretch zone during those 8 weeks. So we have these three zones. The comfort zone, which is our resting state, and we spend a solid chunk of our time there. The panic zone, or frustration zone, where we would like not to be at all, but are sometimes forced to be in by circumstance. And the stretch zone. The stretch zone is where we grow. The stretch zone is where we learn. And the great thing about voluntarily spending time in the stretch zone is that it grows our capacity. Let's do another stretch to remind ourselves what that feels like. Let's just really stretch something right now, not just loosening up, but feel some tight muscles and give them just a gentle push. Just maybe enough to feel a little of that burn. See, once we've done that for a while, we could do some hard exercise, whatever that is for us, bodies vary, and not have a high risk of pulling a muscle. If we had done that before we stretched, we know, not good. We would go right into the panic zone, pushing ourselves beyond what was safe, right into an injury. But now that we've stretched, we can go a little farther, push a little harder without harm. The stretch zone doesn't have a fixed size. It grows. We grow it through stretching and then relaxing and resting and spending time in the comfort zone and then stretching some more. And when we spend time in the stretch zone, we grow. That's actually another term for it. The stretch zone is also known as the growth zone. It's where almost all growth happens. So, how do we know, especially when we get out of the physical realm, how do we know when we're in our stretch zone? Well, excellent teachers, coaches, trainers, labor nurses, maybe even ministers develop a keen eye for when someone is truly at their limit and when they could push a bit harder. They know the signs of frustration so that they don't urge us to injure ourselves by forcing ourselves to do more than is safe. As we're learning, as we're absorbing new ideas, new practices, as we're trying things out that are really stretching us, stretching our minds, stretching our spirits, they'll call a break once in a while. Tell us to get a drink, to breathe, to come back next week, to do a few more drills of that stuff we learned last month that's gotten more comfortable. And best of all, they help us to notice the signs in ourselves. Because in the end, we're the only ones who really know when we're reaching the outer limit of our stretch zone. We learn it through experience. A potter learns when he has pushed the clay too far. It thins beautifully, it soars, and then he's asked too much of it and it collapses. The difference between a novice potter and a master is that the master potter is much better at sensing when the clay is just at its limit and stopping there. A novice vessels are usually thick and chunky. They haven't been taken to the beautiful, far reaches of the clay's elasticity. Or they collapse on the wheel, stretched too thin too fast. We also learn it through listening, heeding our own signals of stress and distress. And what we need from one another, most of all, is help to know ourselves. Affirmation in listening to and heeding our own inner voices that say, "You're pushing yourself now," or "You're not pushing yourself very much," or "Stop. Right now the adrenaline is kicking in, we're getting into panic mode." We've had conversations here about how a congregation differs from a club. A club is the comfort zone. You're there to relax, have a good time. We do a lot of things like that here, things that are fun. It's one of the explicit goals of the Children and Youth Religious Education program to have fun together. And here's some news for the kids. That's one of the goals for adults too. We're here to enjoy each other's company, relax, have fun together. If we were a club, that would be all that we did. But both children and adults, we're also here to learn. We're here to transform ourselves. So UUCPA is less a club and more a gym, a good gym, where we are each other's trainers, helping each other to stretch, urging each other to push a little more, and then we relax, drink some water, rest, have fun. Most of all, we are here to help each person find their own stretch zone. Because we want the whole world to stretch a little, not break, just grow. And it's important to focus on each person and to recognize that they're different, because just like a classroom or a spin class, we're not all exactly in the same spot here. What is frustrating for one is just barely a challenge for another person. And what is the comfort zone for one is the panic zone for another. We are encouraged by each other. And the best way to be encouraged is not to think we should do exactly what the other person is doing. Like they're lifting 100 pounds, so we should too, even though we really can only lift 70. Instead, we're encouraged by one another in imitating each other's self-knowledge and the way other people stretch to their limits and not past them. That's how we follow each other. That's how we are models for each other. You know, sometimes people arrive here at UUCPA really bruised and battered by their circumstances, sometimes literally, often emotionally or spiritually. Life has been so full of loss, worry, or other extreme stresses that they just need a haven, a quiet, comfortable corner where they can listen to the beautiful music, see the smiling faces, and chill. Outside, the panic zone awaits, so they need a retreat. If that's you, please, just relax, receive, get as comfortable as you can. When you're ready for a stretch, the opportunities will be here. Sometimes people come to the congregation because their lives aren't actually as challenging them in the way that they want. Maybe not enough people at work or even in their families or among their friendships wants to engage with the big questions that are beginning to concern them, like what is the right thing to do? What will give my life meaning? Is this all there is? What's it all about? Or maybe their daily activities don't offer them a lot of opportunities for growth, for learning the things that they're most interested in. That's what they're seeking, so they come here. If that's you, look around a little. Listen inside yourself. Find the thing that you want to learn, the challenge you want to grow into. And notice, there are trainers here who will help you. People proximate enough to you to help you make the most of the zone of proximal development. And of course, it will change over time. If you're growing, then what was once challenging starts to be part of the comfort zone. I remember when I taught math for a couple of years in my 20s, I was a little nervous setting out to teach algebra to 8th graders since algebra hadn't been so easy for me 10 years earlier. So I felt some trepidation as I sat down to create my first lesson plans and opened up the book of mathematical mysteries. And lo and behold, they weren't mysterious anymore. I had stretched sufficiently back in my own middle school years and gotten some additional stretching without even noticing in the years in between, and now algebra was easy. It was part of my comfort zone. That's great when you're the teacher. When you're the one learning, you want to be in the stretch zone. So let me be quiet for a little time here so that we can each take some time to reflect on what zones we're in our lives. They might vary quite a bit, even within one person. For example, work might not present a challenge, but your health has you in the panic zone, or some other combination. Let's see if we can identify where we are in the stretch zone, and I'll tell you some signs to watch for. One is you're safe. A gym where you are being coerced into lifting overly heavy weights is not a good place to be. So where in your life right now are you safe? Number two, you're uncomfortable. A gym where your muscles are relaxed and you're not breaking a sweat is not serving its purpose. Three, you're not in actual pain. Maybe a little lactic acid type pain that you know will stop as soon as you rest, but you're not being injured. Four, you feel as if what you're trying to grasp is just a bit too far. Like that Robert Browning line about how our reach should exceed our grasp. We can touch it, but we can't quite get hold of it. And fifth, ideally, places where you're in the stretch zone, what you're reaching for is something that you want to be able to grasp. No point in knocking yourself out to lift 200 pounds if that's not important to you. But if you or someone important to you wants you to learn something and it's slow going, you're probably in the stretch zone. So as you reflect, think about these places where you're safe, not in actual pain, but uncomfortable, not quite able to grasp what you're reaching for, and you really want to grasp it. As you reflect, you may notice your comfort zones and panic zones also. Those are good to know about. So now, we'll all have some quiet time to listen inside and find out what zones we're in some different aspects of our lives. Maybe in the breakout rooms after the service, you'll want to share a little bit about what you discovered. Kongzi's advice, such as we heard in our centering words, is often described as moderation in all things. I think this is an oversimplification. He isn't saying take the middle road always, so much as notice where you are. Here it is again. When the superior person eats, she does not try to stuff herself. At rest, she does not seek perfect comfort. She's diligent in her work and careful in speech. He avails himself of people of the Tao and thereby corrects himself. If you're aware of what it feels like to be hungry and to be satisfied and to eat too much, you won't overstuff yourself. If you know what comfort feels like, you won't seek perfect comfort, but go to that zone when it's time to relax and refresh. And if you're availing yourself of the people of the Tao, the people who know the way you wish to travel, you will be able to correct yourself when you stray off that path. As he finishes this passage, these are the people of whom you say, they love learning. We are a community of learning and growth. So, dear ones, let us be guides for each other. We create this space together, not out of wood and glass, nor even Please join me now in singing Swimming to the Other Side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in this stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my crime. In humility, I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me, band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Please stay after the benediction for our virtual coffee time. You'll be invited to small group conversations in our breakout rooms, or you can stay here in the main room with me to discuss the service. You should be able to move between breakout rooms on your own. The rooms will stay open for half an hour or so. So now please unmute yourself, turn on your video, and touch hands virtually while we say our benediction together. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Rejoice in beauty. Speak love with word and deed. Honor all beings. Oh, I forgot to extinguish the chalice. Thank you. Kevin reminded me I did not extinguish the chalice. I must do that. We take the flame with us, of course, so let us do so. taking with us whatever we have learned here, coming back with whatever needs and wisdom we gather during the week in between, until we meet again. And now, before we go to our breakout rooms, let us hear Veronica play once again.